Welcome, everyone. My name is Wanda Vollmer, and I'm with Peace of Mind Preparedness. Welcome to Wildfire and Home Fire Preparedness. This program is brought to you by CERV of the Monterey Peninsula and Listos, California. Let's get started. It's a heartbreaking reality to stop and think of the amount of homes and lives that are lost each year due to wildfires and home fires. And that's why we're here today to discuss how we can prevent them and how we can protect ourselves. But before I get started, I wanted to share a little bit about myself with you. I grew up in San Luis Obispo, California, on a ranch in the middle of nowhere, a time when wildfires were once a season. And in 1996, I was awoken by loud knocking at my front door and told to get out immediately as a wildfire was quickly approaching our homes. The experience from start to finish was absolutely terrifying. We were scared, unprepared, and we even lost a home. And that led me to where I am today. After that experience, I created a communication plan for my family. And a few years after that, I joined the American Red Cross, where I preached disaster preparedness primarily to underserved communities. After that, I started Peace of Mind Preparedness. You know how people struggle to wrap their heads around the idea of preparing for a disaster, and then when one happens, they're left scrambling at the last minute? Well, what I do is I offer tools, skills, and education so that you'll know what to do if faced with a disaster. How I do it through speaking engagements like this. I do one-on-one home visits as well as contract work. I'm also a community volunteer with the CERT team, the Community Emergency Response Team, where I work side by side with first responders in times of disasters and in need, where I live in Carmel, California now. So let's get started. It's hard not to meet someone in California that hasn't been affected by a natural disaster. You stop and think about it, we all have been affected here in California. Maybe you've lost a home, maybe you've helped evacuate, maybe you've had to evacuate yourself. But there is hope. There's so much education and tools out there to help everyone be prepared. Let's take a walk back and look at some statistics. In 2021 in California, there were over 9,000 fires that were recorded. That was the highest number at that time. And 2.23 million acres burned that year. And in 2022, we had 7,667 fires recorded and 363,000 acres across the state that burned. Now, these statistics speak for themselves, but it's best to hear from those that actually experienced a wildfire. Here's a story from Paradise.
They warned us that they were going to shut the power off, PG&E did, for the next 5 days, up to 5 days because of the wind. And then at 8:30, we see there's a fire burning. And then ashes started falling out of the sky. And
huge ashes, like this big. And leaves.
Yeah, up to 2 inches, yeah. And I have burning leaves coming down out of the sky, which is starting to spot fires. And they started evacuations over there on Pence Road. And then by 11:30, we were evacuating. Our power was out on Clark. We had to get out. Oh, the picture was one when I was leaving at 11:30, coming out on Clark Road. Then the flames right across the road was on fire, plus the trees up and down Clark Road were on fire when we were coming out. And that's right by the airport. Yeah, I used to live in Concal. I've been through 3 forest fires, and I moved out of there because of them.
The sea was calm. I was like, I've never been in a fire. And I'm like, oh my gosh. You know, I felt bad about the Reading fire, and I thought I would be prepared, but no. I mean, it's scary seeing all that flames and the smoke, and just to, you know, everybody just needs to get out, you know, for your safety. You know, leave the things behind because you can always replace those.
This is true, and this is a particularly devastating event for this community in Paradise. And here in the Monterey Peninsula in 2020, we had 3 wildfires burning at one time. We had the River, the Dolan, and the Carmel fire. We breathed in smoke for weeks. Some of us had to evacuate. Some of us lost homes. So what can we do? What are some tools that we can do to protect ourselves? One of the first tools that we can use is defensible space. This is actually the first defense against wildfire.
What is defensible space? Defensible space is the area around your home that's been designed to protect it from ignition. 90% of homes that burn during a wildfire are ignited by embers that start spot fires that then spread to the house. By eliminating vegetation and combustibles within 5 feet from the home and maintaining space around plants throughout your yard, you can slow the spread of fires. This gives firefighters the space they need to defend your home.
Thank you, Fire Safe Marin. Okay, before we get into this graphic, I wanted to describe the 3 zones when it comes to defensible space. For a quick moment, ignore the numbers 1 through 6 on this graphic, and we're going to describe the 3 areas of defensible space. There is the 0 zone, which is the ember-resistant zone, which is 0 to 5 feet from your house. You can see this blue dot. That would be this space right here. And then there's zone 1, which is the lean, clean, and green zone, which is 5 to 30 feet from your home. It's the zone right here. And then there's the zone 2, which is a reduced fuel zone, which is 30 to 100 feet from your home. So I chose this graphic so we can take a walk around this house. Now I fully realize that not everyone's house looks like this. Perhaps your house is on a steep slope, perhaps you live in a dense neighborhood like I do, or a large parcel lot. But this is a great image so we can take a look at what we can do to increase the defensible space around our home. So let's go over to area number 1 right over here. It's important to leave space between planted vegetation and landscape your home with less flammable plants, such as hardwood trees versus pine or fir trees. Let's take a walk over here to area 2. It's important to just create a fuel break, such as driveways or gravel pathways around your home. And we'll take a walk over here to area 3. We see some debris from trees in your garden in these waste bins. It's important to dispose of these tree trimmings so that it's not fuel for the fire. And walking back right over here to area 4, we have a gentleman cutting down his grass. It's important to cut your grass down to a maximum height of 4 inches. And remember to mow before 10 a.m. and never on hot or windy days. With the recent rains in California, there's a lot of mowing to be done, a lot of cutting to be done. Maintaining your yard is something that should be incorporated on a regular basis. Let's walk over to area number 5. Speaking of maintenance, it's imperative that you remove any leaves, twigs, or barks or pine needles. This is all just debris that could be potential fuel to ignite your home. And wrapping around here to area 6, make sure that you remove your lower tree branches at least 6 inches up from the ground. Let's move on to the next photo and keep going. So as we see right here in area 7, it's really important to clean your rain gutters. I don't know about you, but this last 3 months of rain in California really did a number on my gutters. So there's all sorts of things in there. So make sure to keep your gutters clean and clear. Let's walk over to area 8. What's happening over here? We've got stacked firewood. We have a propane tank. If possible, try to move these away from your home, if any flammable items whatsoever, at least 30 feet of your home, 30 feet from your home. And let's take a look at area 9. Over here, it's important to separate items that can catch fire from trees or from shrubs. And so keep these items separate. Area 10 right here, we have some landscaping. You can landscape your home with fire-resistant plants. There's a lot of great choices out there. Local nurseries can definitely help you with that. And not only will this help you increase your property value, but you also save water. So let's take a walk over here to area 11. We see this tall tree with branches hanging over the roof. You want to make sure that you trim your branches that hang over your roof and keep them separate. Now, section 12 right over here, if you're doing any planting under power lines whatsoever, make sure to only plant low-growing shrubs or trees under power lines. If you have any questions, contact PG&E or your energy technicians to report any issues that you see. Those are some things you can do to create defensible space. By taking these steps, not only are we protecting ourselves and our homes, but we're also helping firefighters do their job much more efficiently and much more effectively, so they have the best chance of fighting fires and protecting us. So I wanted to take a quick pause right here and show you what they've been up to in 2022. I hope this inspires you as much as it inspired me.
Good job. Almost there, almost there. there. There's hours and hours of labor out here just trying to make this environment ready for that next fire.
Each of you should be proud of what you have accomplished and the dedication that it took to get here.
A couple thousand people that are depending on us to save their community today.
We will strive to do the best that we do every single day.
Your firefighters that have been out on the ground have been in one heck of a firefight.
I love helping people, and that's exactly what I do on a day-to-day basis.
It pushes what you think you're capable of doing.
It is you that makes it all possible.
This is why we do what we do.
Thank you, CAL FIRE. Thank you to all first responders who protect us here in California and throughout the United States, all fire service and all first responders. Now, we talked about defensible space. Now let's move on to home hardening. You may have heard that term. That simply means preparing your home for a wildfire. There's a number of ways that your home can be exposed to wildfire. It can be through a direct flame, obviously, or a burning neighboring home, radiant heat from a burning plant or a structure, and flying embers. Now, this is a big one. These embers can actually destroy a home up to a mile away, and they're actually responsible for the destruction of most homes during wildfires. So we're going to do the same thing right here. We're going to take a walk around this house and see what we can do to harden our home. So let's start with the roof, which is a very vulnerable part of our home. Many roofs are actually made of wood, shingles, and are at high risk of being destroyed during a wildfire. So it's important when you re-roof to make sure to have a roof that is metal, clay, tile, or composition. Now let's talk about these vents. This is where these embers come in through these vents right here. You're going to want to make sure that you cover your vents with metal mesh, either 1/16 of an inch or 1/8 of an inch, and make sure not to use fiber or plastic because that can actually melt. Now let's move over to eaves and soffits right here. Eaves should be boxed in with non-combustible materials. And let's take a look at the windows on your home. Heat from a wildfire can cause windows to break even before your home is on fire. So it's really important to have possibly, dual pane windows as opposed to single pane windows, and also add a screen because that actually helps with the ember resistance and it decreases the chance of those little buggers getting in there as well. Let's talk about the siding of your home. Most homes have boards and panels and shingles are common choices, but those are flammable. So if you do build or remodel, make sure to use ignition resistant materials such as stucco. Okay, let's climb up here to let's go towards the deck. So over here with the deck, you're going to want to make sure that you have either an ember resistant zone around your deck and make sure that any combustible items are removed from underneath your deck. Keep that area clear so nothing's stacked up there. Next up, we talked about rain gutters over here. Let's talk about the garage. I have memories when I was a little girl growing up on the ranch where we'd have these little wildfires spark up, and my dad always kept a fire extinguisher, a shovel, a rake, and a bucket and other tools to put out those spot fires quickly. It was an image. We'd all, sit and watch him drive away and he'd put out those fires. So make sure you have those tools in your garage. You might want to consider adding a battery backup to your garage door motor so that if the power goes out, you can exit your garage. And also consider installing weather stripping around your garage door so those embers can't get in, under, or around. And make sure not to store any combustible or flammable items in your garage. And treat your windows of your garage the same way that you treat the windows of your home. Now let's move on to fences. It is advised that it's best practice to separate your fence from your house or upgrade the last 5 feet of fence with a non-combustible material. That reduces your chance of fires as well. So that is home hardening. And lastly for this, you want to make sure that your driveways and your access roads are clear so that any emergency personnel can get in there. So, all right, let's move forward. We've covered defensible space, we covered home hardening. Now let's talk about preparing your family. It's important to discuss an evacuation plan with your entire family and plan at least 2 escape routes out of your home and your neighborhood by foot and by car. And you're going to want to ensure that each member of your family knows where the fire extinguishers are in your house and how to use them. Other things to consider for your family, make sure to sign up for emergency alerts so you can be alerted of any wildfire or any type of disaster coming. Make sure you have an emergency kit, your emergency contact list ready, and any important documents. So that is a lot of information, and you look at that and you think that's a lot to do. But I wanted to share a video of a lovely person by the name of Lonnie Trykowski I met in 2020, right during the beginning of the fires in California. Listen in to her story.
Trykowski, and we've lived at this house here in Mid-Carmel Valley for about 35 years, since 1985. It's on a 1/2 acre lot, and when we first moved here, it was a jungle. There were cypress trees growing up against the house. They were growing all the way up to the roof. There were big pine trees with limbs overhanging the roof. And by the way, the roof was a wood-shake roof, which back in the 70s and 80s were considered desirable. We know better now. The driveway was obstructed by big pine trees with overhanging limbs, so there was no way that an emergency vehicle could have gotten in. There were pine needles everywhere, and we had these conifers, which, as we know now, are highly flammable. They burn very hot, very fast, and being against the house was very dangerous. But it was 1985, and I knew nothing about wildfires, about fire fuel reduction. I was just happy as a pig in a puddle to have my own house on a nice, quiet cul-de-sac with friendly neighbors. And then a couple years later, the Pebble Beach fire happened, and I saw 47 big, substantial homes burn to the ground in an overgrown pine forest. And we started hearing about excessive fire fuels and forest management. And I realized then that it was time to do something with our jungle and our forest. So at that time, of course, I was a young adult. Now I'm a senior citizen. Now, of course, it's much more daunting to think about fire fuel reduction. But at the time, we were new homeowners, and we just started where we could. We started with removing the cypress hedges away from the house, getting the tree limbs away from the roof, limbing up the trees by the driveway so that there would be ingress and egress space for emergency vehicles. And we started clearing weeds, and we removed even some of the bigger trees that were near the house, the pine trees. And of course, pine pitch canker came along and sort of helped us with that because it killed some of these trees, and then we were removing dead trees. So then in 1993, the first Malibu fire came along, and I watched many homes, big substantial homes, burn to the ground. But I heard that those that were spared had one thing in common. They had Class A fire-resistant roofs. And so very quickly, soon after, we put together the plan to get a Class A composite asphalt shingle roof on and get rid of the wood shake roof. And of course, as we continued on this process, we kept realizing that stuff grows back, and it's an ongoing process. But in the meantime, we talked to our adjoining neighbors and realized that we could plan to get rid of trees and vegetation on our shared lot lines in ways that would make all of our properties safer. And it turns out that when you coordinate with your neighbors for tree cutting, you can save some money because many times the tree companies will give you a discount if they can do multiple jobs on one street. And also, we have gotten gutter guards since then for our house to keep the pine needles and leaves out of the gutters, and we're much more diligent about keeping debris and pine needles and leaves off the roof. Now, I myself cannot go up on a roof and do this, but I do hire people. And if there's difficulty with that, remember, you can ask for help. Sometimes there are neighbors or friends who will help you with these kinds of chores. It's really important to keep the pine needles off of your roof and decks because an ember from an adjacent fire can travel 1 to 2 miles. A burning ember can travel 1 to 2 miles, and still, when it gets to your house, will be hot enough to ignite some dry debris on your roof or deck. So this is very important. The other thing we have done was we have kept our yard more maintenance free, so we've removed a lot of the vegetation and replaced it with just open space with chips or gravel. Being careful, of course, to keep the chips away from the base of the house where the siding is, because smoldering chips can ignite your house. We have also put up or installed more hose bibs in the yard and around the house with hoses attached, so that in case of an approaching fire, we can wet down the roof and the yard, or we can even put out a small fire that might ignite in our yard. And I have invested in more fire extinguishers, which I keep in the house in plain view. They are now part of the decor because I want to be able to grab one quickly if I need it in a hurry. Now, recently, we've been thinking more about evacuation, especially since
Thank you, Lonnie, for that. That's amazing work that you've done with your home. Some key points out of there to pull out of there is that she's asking for help, and you can ask for help as well from your friends, from your neighbors. Consider joining a Firewise community. Firewise communities are those that have taken steps to harden and create defensible space in their homes. And you can also contact your local fire department to come out and take a look at your home. So I wanted to share with you, we're going to wrap up this part of wildfire preparedness. I wanted to share a resource with you. This is a wonderful one called Wildfire Action Plan. You can download it on readyforwildfire.org and get a brochure for more detailed information on the stuff that I've just covered right now. So let's shift gears and let's talk about home fires. Now, home fires, there's over close to 360,000 home fires reported in the United States every year. And a lot of them start in the kitchen, bedroom, chimney, living room, and 3% actually start in the laundry room. So I'm going to share a video with you right now from firefighter Gabriel and learn how we can take some steps to protect our home.
Hi, my name is Gabriel Williams. I'm a certified firefighter in the state of Illinois, and today we're going to talk about basic house fire prevention. One of the #1 causes of house fires, the thing that I probably see the most, is that people have a stove with a broiler drawer underneath it like this, and they don't realize that it's not a place to store pots, pans, hot pads, towels, coffee filters, things like that. So what happens is they have a pan like this with maybe some hot pads, and they don't have room in their cupboards, so they put it under the stove here and close it, and then put their stove on to 500 or to broil, to preheat it, get it warmed up, and the things in this drawer start on fire. You want to make sure to check and make sure if there is a drawer under your stove that it's not a broiler if you're going to be storing pots and pans in it. I don't like the idea of a storage drawer under the stove anyways. It's just not safe. Store your pots, pans, hot pads, towels in a different place. Don't store them next to something that gets this hot in your home. That's going to prevent most of your house fires from happening. Another thing we see a lot is toasters that don't function properly. Any appliances like a stove or a toaster, a microwave that's not functioning properly has a high potential to start a fire in your house. Things like dryers, make sure that your dryer vent is clean. Make sure that where your dryer exhaust is on the outside of your house, make sure that's clean of debris, lint, things like that. Dryers get extremely hot and can cause a house fire. It's a good idea probably if you're not going to be home, shut your dryer off. I know it's convenient to throw the clothes in the dryer and let it run while you go and get the groceries, but this is how a lot of fires happen. They happen when you're not home and your whole house goes up in flames because you weren't there to call 911 to get someone there to extinguish the fire. Many appliances in your house have the potential to do that. So anything that gets hot or heats up, unplug it or make sure it's turned off before you leave the house. Candles are another huge thing that cause a lot of fires in the world today. Never, ever leave a candle unattended. If you leave a room, blow the candle out. You can light it again when you come back in the room, but you cannot extinguish that room on your own in most cases if that candle starts the room on fire. Never leave it unattended. Blow it out before you leave the room. Blow it out before you leave the house. Make sure if you have extension cords running to your television, to VCRs, to things like that, check the cords for damage. Frayed wires can cause a spark, which can set your carpet, a rug, furniture on fire, and things like that ignite extremely quickly. So make sure you're checking those extension cords. Smoke detectors are a great way to prevent fire and loss of life. Make sure that your smoke detector is functioning properly. Push the test button on it. Change your batteries twice a year. When you change your clocks, change your batteries. The best way to survive a fire is to prevent it from ever happening. Now I know a lot of this stuff seems like common sense, but it's only common sense when it's common to you. And now it is. I'm Gabriel Williams, and we've been talking about how to prevent common house fires.
Those are great tips from Gabriel. Mind you, it's a dated video. He mentioned VCRs. I have to tell you, many of us don't have VCRs, but the information, however, is still relevant. So great tips from Gabriel. Thank you so much. And who is guilty of leaving their home with their washer or dryer on? I used to do that all the time until I met a really good friend of mine who actually did that, and they actually had a fire start in their garage. So I never do that at all. So let's talk about some additional tips that weren't covered in this video. So it's really important. Let me move this over. A moment. Oh. Okay, some additional tips. It's important to cook carefully. Firefighters have a great phrase called keep an eye on what you fry. And this is a really good phrase because, perhaps we start something in the frying pan and we walk away for a few minutes. Never leave your stovetop or your oven unattended for any reason. And take some time to plan an escape from a fire, just as we were talking about earlier with wildfires. Sit in each room of your home tonight and figure out 2 to 3 ways that you could evacuate in the event of a fire happening. Space heaters. I recently read that there are 1,800 fires caused a year in the United States caused by space heaters. So make sure that you have space heaters that are not near drapery, are on surfaces such as ceramic or tile. So keep an eye on those space heaters and make sure to unplug them and don't leave them on. If you have kids in the house, keep those matches and lighters away. Those are not toys. And if the unthinkable happens, remember to stop, drop, and roll if your clothing is on fire. If you have to evacuate, crawl low underneath the smoke. And touch door handles with the back of your hand. If you feel there's a fire on the other side, don't grab it. That way you can feel the heat before opening the door. And fire extinguishers. Make sure that you have fire extinguishers in your home, as we said before, but how do you use them? So use the acronym PASS. P for pull the pin, A for aim low at the base of the fire, S to squeeze the handle slowly, and the other S is for squeeze or sweep the nozzle side to side is how you use the fire extinguisher. So we've covered a lot of things in these past few minutes. We've talked about defensible space. We've talked about home hardening, how you can prepare your family, home fires, a lot of information. I'd like to end on this quote: preparedness, when properly pursued, is a way of life, not a sudden spectacular program. So take the steps. I encourage you to take these steps to reduce the risk and create a plan to ensure the safety of your family. Being prepared is the best way to protect your family. Thank you so much for joining us today. Again, my name is Wanda Vollmer, and I'm with Peace of Mind Preparedness. And if you have any questions, please feel to contact me. Thank you again to CERV of the Monterey Peninsula and Listos, California, for making this program possible. Have a great day, everyone, and stay safe.